One of the most remarkable aspects of the story of Palm Sunday is the way that we usually hear it. For it's the only time of the year when we actually participate in the reading of the Gospel, well, we would do on a normal Palm Sunday. We take part in the procession. We have our palms and we cry, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. We wave our palms. We treasure our palms. But strangely, these palms, which are long and straight, we turn them into crosses. And we go on to the Gospel, where, at that moment of the crowd, we cry out, Crucify him, crucify him. Now, there is a real irony, a contradiction in the liturgy of today, where we start with celebration, palms in our hands, but we also cry out, Crucify him. The palms reveal our very human duplicity. How easily we turn. How quickly we pivot from being faithful to faithless, from belief to doubt, from being disciples to being betrayers. We start out acting like angels, singing Hosanna, and we end up one of the mob, crying out, Crucify him. Palm Sunday to Good Friday seems to be a pretty accurate description of human life. There are two extremes, and extremes in life always lead to a lack of balance. We lose our balance. The young St. John Bosco had a great eye for tricks, and particularly was attracted to circus performances. And one day, a circus performer came to his village, and he walked on the high rope. And John Bosco was fascinated by this. And he said to the man afterwards, will you show me how to walk on the tightrope? And the man said yes, but before he could show him, Don Bosco was up the tree, onto the rope, and fell off. Dusted himself up, climbed up the tree, on the rope again, fell off 3 times. And the 3rd time, the man looked at him and said, would you now like me to show you how to do it? And he said to him, when you are on a rope, you have to be careful because you will lose your balance. The best way is not to look up. Don't look down. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. Look straight ahead. And if you keep looking straight ahead, you will keep your balance. We lose our balance in life when we stop looking where we're meant to be looking. We keep our balance by looking straight ahead. Life finds meaning in finding the point of balance in our lives. Life is not all about Hosanna, or indeed all about crucifixion. The story we've heard never changes, but it can and does change us, but only when our eyes are always looking in the right direction. Some people go to church on Palm Sunday and then they just ignore the events of Holy Week, coming to Mass again on Easter Sunday. Well, that's like reading a novel, beginning at chapter 1 and then going to the last chapter. You miss all that's going on and you can't understand the conclusion. So, who are you looking at today? Who is it that you're looking at today? What will give you a point of balance in your life today and in the days to come? The Holy Father asks us to open our eyes that we may see Jesus. He says this, Jesus, who accepts the hosannas of the crowd, knows full well that they will soon be followed by the cry to crucify him. He does not ask us only to look at him in pictures and photographs. No, he asks us to see him in our brothers and sisters who today endure great suffering like his own. Those who suffer from family tragedies, diseases and sickness. Those who suffer from the violence of war and terrorism. Women and men who are cheated, violated in their dignity, discarded, set aside. Jesus is in them, in each of them, and with marred features and broken voice, he asks to be looked in the eye, to be acknowledged, to be loved in these our brothers and sisters. It is not some other Jesus, but the same Jesus who entered Jerusalem amid the waving of palm trees. It's the same Jesus who was nailed to the cross and died between two criminals. We have no other Lord but him. And so the question is, can you look him in the eye? Now we all understand the meaning when someone says to us, I just couldn't look him in the face. I couldn't look him in the eye. We know what that means. We know what it means as is very clear. It means you've had a row with someone. You've fallen out with someone. And when you meet them again, you turn away. You couldn't look them in the eye. Now the point of balance is that we need to be able to look at Jesus straight in the eye. For what we find when we seek to find him, to look at him, is that sometimes to our surprise, he's already looking for us. And this is beautifully explained in the story of the prodigal son. In the prodigal son, we hear about, it's called the story of the prodigal son. It should actually be the story of the loving father, because the key is this line. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. Now what does that tell us? It tells us that the father was looking for his son while he was a long way off. So he was standing, he was looking each day, looking for his son to come back. And his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son. He didn't just stand there with his hands on his hips saying, I knew you'd come back one day with your tail between your legs. That's not what he said. He ran to his son, folded his arms around him and kissed him. Why? Because he was looking for him. So he looks for us. And the story is, don't look away. Find that balance that helps you to look in the eyes of Jesus. A few years ago, I heard a story that had a big impact on me, made me think a great deal about what's going to happen in the next life. And this is the story. A man who died came to a crossroad. When he gets to the crossroad, he asks himself, shall I go to the right or to the left? And there was a pull in both directions. But the pull to the right, he felt drawn to because he saw a light. And as he journeyed towards the light, it grew brighter and brighter. And he could see that there was something in the middle of the light. And as he got closer, he realized that he was looking into God's eyes. That this light was God looking at him. And he looked and saw the beauty of God's face as he looked him in the eye. But the closer he got, he realized that there was something in God's eyes. There was something there that he could see. And to his horror, he realized that what he was seeing in the beauty of God's loving face was his own sinfulness, his own selfishness, those things in his life where he had turned away from God. And at that moment, it was so painful, he had to turn away. He had to turn away from God. But when he turned back, it had gone. And all he could see was God's holy face. He could look at him in the eye to eye, face to face. He could see his loving Father. It was the beauty of God's face, for his sins had been forgiven. For while he was still a long way off, his Father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. That moment when we realize God is looking at us is when we realize that our lives can change. When we realize that the Father runs to us, this is when we find our balance in life, turning our shouts of Hosanna and crucify him into a dawning realization that somewhere on this journey of our lives, out of our emotions, fears, and darkness, the ancient words have come true. The people who walked in darkness have found a great light, and those who lived in the land of shadow have seen a great light. Dare we believe that this light has dawned? The answer? Journey with the Lord this week. Enter into the events of his passion and death. Become one of his disciples and live the experience of this holy week as we await with joyful hope the coming of the Lord. And it will no longer be all emotional hosannas and brutal crucifixions, but a word beginning with an A, which at this moment we hesitate to whisper.